What's going on, guys? It's your boy John the Liquidator coming back with another video. And look like Tommy Rees is speaking about Dillion Gabriel and his recent performance at the quarterback position. Guys, for this one here, we got to go all the way up to Cleveland. Let's get it. Let's go.
For real? Somebody call me Junior, too.
Come on up.
Yeah.
I thought you was Junior. I got put on my voice. Stop right here for me. Came back saying go on and
seeing Dillon's toughness really show through. Like, it got into a tough circumstance there when you play that team, get behind, don't want to make it a one-dimensional game. It's a tough spot to put a young quarterback in. But I thought he hung in there, delivered the ball. Other misses, sure. I think pressure obviously can attribute to some of those things. We had a couple opportunities there. We had a couple balls that we just didn't connect on. Think of the one there late in the third quarter to Harold, and then we missed one to Jerry on an extended play. So just we want to make sure that we're putting him in those positions to continue to get that work during the week. But all in all, battled tough circumstance as the game went on, but mentally I thought he was in the right place for the majority of the game, and did a nice job in a tough environment of communicating to our guys. So week to week with a rookie quarterback, you're going to build upon, what you do and what you ask of him. So going to keep trending in the, right direction with how we approach the week with Dillion.
Are you, obviously, you're hoping to have David this week, and we don't know the answer to that yet. How important is he to kind of everything that you do in all aspects of your offense?
Yeah, Dave's a critical part of the offense. We trust and believe in those other guys too to come in and fill roles. And, as you look at it, you got to be creative with, when you have somebody out or somebody not being able to practice and all those things on how you approach the week. So, Dave's working hard to get right and to get himself in position to have an opportunity to play. And, he's played this game for a long time. He's been in this offense for a long time. So mentally he's in the right place. So, just got to continue to have him, work through it and see where he is come Sunday.
Is it difficult to stick with the run when it isn't going well in the beginning? I'm talking about before the fourth quarter.
Yeah. I think our run plan, we felt confident about going into the game. They have a good front. The game takes so many turns, throughout series, whether you're getting behind the sticks or the circumstances of the game. So, certainly we had run the ball pretty effectively for a couple of weeks, and it's something that we want to make sure that we're always giving ourselves a chance to do. Q had a couple, really efficient weeks running it. Our line was blocking well. Our tight ends were doing a nice job. Receivers competing in the game. So, look to make sure that we always have the ability to run the ball for 4 quarters, and staying in the game is part of that critically as well.
Against pressing too much.
Say that again, sorry.
Pressing. How do you guard against that? Guys that are pressing. Trying to force too much. Too soon.
Yeah, you want the game to come to you a little bit. You also want guys to go out there with an aggressive mindset that they're going to go take the game. So there is a balance there. I think when you have a good week of prep, when you feel confident in what you're being asked to do, when you feel confident in what the coaches are providing you, you can go out there and play free, and you don't really feel like pressing. I think, look, the situation we're in, the record we're in, the way we're playing on offense, it's probably natural to feel that way. To fight that, you just lean back into the process and lean back into the things that you did during the week to give yourself success on Sunday. And we got to keep our guys in that mentality throughout the week and then on game day.
To Dillion, when he faces like as much pressure as he saw on Sunday, he's hit 16 times. Like how difficult is it to evaluate his performance, especially a young quarterback and rookie performance when that's kind of the case?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of positives to draw from it. We had a 22-yard completion called back where he did a great job in the pocket of extending the play in the pocket, found Jerry, and, we get called for a pre-snap penalty there. The extended play to Harold, the extended play to Jerry, there are some movement things there that I think are really efficient, and you see him keeping his eyes down the field and not seeing the rush. Like, he was hit, but I never felt like he was, feeling the rush and it got him off schedule or out of his plan. So when you look at that and you evaluate his ability to maneuver in the pocket, keep his eyes downfield, still play within his progressions through some pressure. Like, to me, those are all things that you draw on as positive and want to build off of. And ultimately knowing there's a lot of different things you need to do to protect better, whether it's the offensive line, the tight ends, getting open, playing on time as the quarterback, like sacks, pressures, hits, that is not an offensive line stat. Like, that is not a sole offensive line stat. When you look at the issues we had, it goes everywhere from the quarterback to the wideouts and everyone in between participate in that. So, like, as an offense, holistically, we have to get that corrected.
You're looking at some of the drops among the pass catchers, especially on Sunday. Jerry on Sunday talked about sometimes feeling like, oh, when you guys don't have a lead, guys pressing to try to make a play before they've actually caught the ball.
Yeah.
I guess, are you seeing that in film? Or?
Yeah, we try to focus on the fundamental parts, right? Like, there are fundamental things, I think, when you look at the drops that show up consistently across guys. Sometimes, certain guys have tendencies when they're trying to catch a ball in traffic or trying to catch a ball on the sideline that show up. And our job as coaches is to coach those fundamentals and make sure we get those corrected.
That Dillion does have that mobility in his game, especially with you guys having some tackle issues right now and trying to get those positions stabilized as much as possible. Is it critical to have the keepers, the boots, the movement that he can do?
Yeah, week to week, we definitely evaluate how teams play those. And, it's part of our offensive identity. It's part of, what we have at our arsenal. And Dillon's mobility, certainly getting him on the perimeter, getting him in a clear sight, like those things all help. And, we'll pick and choose our spots to use those.
When you look at Miami's defense and the pressure they have been able to put on teams, what are you seeing in that, especially with Dillion stepping into this game?
Yeah, they have three guys on the edges that do a nice job rushing at a really high level. Seiler inside's a really good 3-tech rusher, interior guy that can win on guards and centers. He can bump out over a tackle. 30, the backer, is a very good blitzer, is a matchup for the backs. So they're an aggressive defense. They pressure, a good chunk of time. They do a good job in their different packages on third down, and then they have personnel that can win one-on-one situations. So, every week you go against teams and, there's a reason why those guys are drafted so high, that it's that important. So every week we got to have a plan to help our guys and to make sure that, we can neutralize some of the rush patterns that we see.
So when you're doing the game plan on Tuesday, it was a beautiful day, but Sunday's not going to be
right
the forecast. So
yeah.
How does that affect your Tuesday game planning?
Yeah, you definitely plan for it. To go into all the specifics probably wouldn't be an advantage for us, but you definitely plan for it and account for it. You put the ball security part at a premium. You look at, maybe certain things that you might need more of or less of based on the plan. And, weather's part of the game. And you saw it Monday night at the end of that game, right? Weather playing a factor there. So, there's certainly drills and things you do to work that with your players. And then there's planning that goes into it to make sure that you have enough of certain things.
Obviously, you were with him last year. How have you seen his role change or evolve in the last couple of seasons, and maybe with the addition of Harold as well?
Yeah, well, I would say first and foremost, Dave is a guy that we look to as a leader. He's been great with Harold. Very supportive of Harold and Harold's role and how he's growing. I think that the good thing about Dave and the special thing about Dave as a player is he is one of the tight ends that can do both, right? Like, he can line up as a Y and be efficient at the line of scrimmage. He can win in the pass game and make plays there. So, he has the ability to be on the field a lot because there's not a ton that that he can't do physically. Mentally he's really sharp. So, learning the system and picking things up comes pretty natural for him. So in that case, like, Dave's a guy that's not a dying breed, but there's not a lot of tight ends that you keep on the field to do everything. The great thing about Harold is, those to get Dave at his very best, you take a couple of reps off of him and Harold can spot those things and continue to work towards that. But that working relationship has been really positive.
There were some passes from Dillion that were just flat off target. So how correctable is that?
Yeah, I think we just, again, like I said earlier, when we look at issues like that, we try to hone in on the fundamentals and making sure that when we do miss or when we have issues show up, that we're correcting those things and continue to drill them during the week.
And it's the pass that hit Bond in the head. What did he just not get his turn around and look for the ball? Or
yeah, it was just a miscommunication there at the goal line.
Dylan Sampson, what do you think the upside is for him? It looked like he showed a few things. Do you think there's more to be had there from him, like in the short passing game and stuff like that.
Yeah, Dillon's done a really nice job. Obviously when Q was out, he stepped into a role and did really well for us in that. Q is being around the kid, and you see his love for football. He picks up things at a really high rate for a rookie. So there's a lot that you can trust in Samp and getting his ability to help this offense. And I think as the season goes on, you'll see his comfort and ability to help continue to grow. And, a lot of the best offenses across the league have a couple backs that can be out there and play at a high level. So we certainly think highly of Samp and excited to see kind of where his trajectory goes.
The wind is blowing like it could be on Sunday. How does that affect a quarterback's decision making?
Yeah, I mean, you got to spin it in the wind. Dillion does that pretty well. He throws a pretty tight ball. Obviously, you got to play on time. Some balls that maybe you get away with late, but if you're playing on time, playing on rhythm, hopefully you're pretty efficient still. And then there's probably some things, if the wind's really blowing and you're going into it, that maybe you're waiting until the field flips. But try not to focus too much on the exterior factors there. Cool. Thanks, guys.